आने वाले कल की दस्तक हमें सुनाई देती है। नई मंजिल है जिस ओर हमें वो दिशा दिखाई देती है। नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए जोश से निकल पड़े हम, आने वाला कल होगा हमारा। नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
और नए इंडिया के सफर में टेक्नोलॉजी की शक्ति लेकर आपका भागीदार रहेगा रिलायंस। नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
Go. My card. Dude, my card's with me. You can't use the American Express.
Abe, mute yourself.
I am.
आने वाले कल की दस्तक हमें सुनाई देती है, नई मंजिल है जिस ओर हमें वो दिशा दिखाई देती है। नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए जोश से निकल पड़े हम, आने वाला कल होगा हमारा। नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
और नए इंडिया के सफर में टेक्नोलॉजी की शक्ति लेकर आपका भागीदार रहेगा रिलायंस। नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
Hi, Gargi.
Good morning, Mr. Munjal.
Good morning. How are you, Renuka?
Good. Thank you for joining.
Not at all. I see Rajan is here as well already. Hi,
He's
Rajan.
logged in, yes.
Yes. Is Marut joining as well?
Yes, he will also be joining.
Oh, I see he's here already.
Yeah, he's already logged in, yes. We
Hi,
still
Marut.
have another 5 minutes to go.
Yes,
Oh,
yes. So I'm just going to turn my camera off. I just have a call to make.
Sure, sure.
And I will be around just now.
Definitely. Oh.
Right. Thank you. I see many of our speakers also here. Welcome to everyone.
Nice to meet you. Hi.
Hi. I'm just turning my camera off for a phone call. So
Sure.
I'm around though. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just running to get a cup of tea. I will be back.
Most welcome.
Hi Renuka, this is Gopi here. Hope you can.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to see you. Sometimes connectivity is an issue, so we all log in quickly so that we know everybody's joined, and then we have to wait for a while.
Hi, Rajan.
There he is. Good morning, Mr. Navani.
Hi, good morning, Renuka. How are you?
I'm good. I'm
Hi,
good.
hi, Gargi. Hi.
I
Hi,
was just
Rajan.
calling you. I was.
So, so Trevor, what time is this for you?
It's currently 2:30, so very comfortable in the middle of the afternoon. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Are we your first session for today?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great.
This is just going to start in the next 2 minutes. So it is a starting session.
Oh, excellent.
Hi,
Hi,
Raj.
good morning. Hi, good morning. This is Tina from Startup Bangladesh Limited.
Good morning. Good to
Good
have you here.
morning.
Mr. Sunil, how are you?
Good. Thank you. So is Startup Bangladesh based in Dhaka?
Yes, it's based in Dhaka. It's a venture capital fund, which is funded by the ICT Ministry, the government of Bangladesh. I'm joining from San Francisco, actually.
Right. Okay.
I'm here for work. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Right. Good. I see we have Rajan here. We have Miss Ling here. We have Trevor, and we have Mr. Suzuki, and we have Gopi from the Maryland Foundry. And do we have Juan? Juan is here as well. Hi. So good. So we are all here and we are on time. Okay.
And we're about to start.
Yes. Is someone going to give us a...
Yes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you to the second day of the Indo-Pacific Business Summit, organized by the Economic Diplomacy Division of Ministry of External Affairs and the Confederation of Indian Industry. This is today's first session on helping startups go global. To begin with the session, I'd like to invite Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal, past President CII, Chairman CII Startup Council, and Chairman Hero Group, to give his opening remarks. So,
Thank you, Renuka. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which part of the world you're joining in from. And thank you for joining this opening session of the day for the Indo-Pacific Business Summit. We've often said that innovation is the fuel which is driving the world. It is certainly driving a lot of the change that is taking place around the world. And it is clear that if we look around at ourselves, at the situation, conditions regarding population, issues regarding energy, food, situations like the one we've had with the pandemic, that we do need a clear application of mine in some of the areas which have not been getting enough attention. While governments do their bit, large corporates theirs, but the real energy for this change is coming from the startup community. The innovation, the agility, and the alacrity with which they can move is often difficult in larger organizations because they do tend to build a natural bureaucracy as they grow. So let me welcome my friend and colleague, Rajan Navani, who's also chairman of CII's India at 75 and vice chairman and managing director of the Jetline Group of Industries. Welcome, Rajan. And as we all know, Singapore is also known as Asia's Silicon Valley. From Singapore today, we have Ms. Lim E. Ling, head of APAC Global Innovation 500 Startup Singapore. Welcome to you. From Australia, we have Trevor Townsend, CEO of Startup Bootcamp Australia. We have Ms. Tina Jabin from Bangladesh, which is now showing one of the faster growing innovation hubs in South Asia. She is the MD and CEO of Startup Bangladesh Limited. We do know that a lot of this change, innovation, and dramatically moving the economies and industry forward started with Japan and the energy it provided over the many decades gone by. Japan has also mastered the ability to provide innovative solutions. And from Japan, we have Mr. Hiroyuki Suzuki, Executive Vice President, Advanced Telecommunications Research Institute International, ATR Japan. Welcome to you, Mr. Suzuki. From India, we have Dr. Gopi Chand Katragadda, founder and CEO of Mailin Foundry. His vast experience as an entrepreneur and his previous experience as the group CIO of Tata Sons will be a great value addition for this session. Last but certainly not the least, we have Juan Esteban Sanchez, Director of Pro Colombia, Embassy of Colombia, and we will like to get his viewpoint on this as well. So welcome to all of you. Let me spend a minute on the Indo-Pacific region. This is now emerging as a critical engine for growth with high impact private sector investments taking place, as also being boosted by the effort being made by government in this super competitive market. There is a need in many parts of this world to create jobs, to provide public services, to improve access to quality services, and a whole host of other issues which are a concern at this moment in these economies. The Asian economies are also projected to create 50% of the global GDP in the coming decades. It certainly makes sense for us to be having a more open, a more deliberate, and a more continuous dialogue with each other. While scripting the saga of the vibrant economies, there are also now new avenues available to us for creating a great deal of value, wealth, job creation, and at the same time, improving quality of life for all of our citizens. We do know that the startups have the ability to create a multiplier effect because of their speed, as I mentioned earlier, and their agility to take decisions quickly, also address areas which may be either a felt need or sometimes even a gaping hole in what is available to us as individuals, as citizens, as corporates, and users and consumers of goods and services. The Prime Minister of India in 2016 announced an initiative that he called Startup India. That infused a great deal of energy in the movement, which was already starting off by itself through multiple initiatives of individuals and individual small enterprises, as also sometimes supported and promoted by the larger ones. This initiative was then followed by a series of other initiatives, which encouraged not just the individuals, but the entire ecosystem for startups to come in, to grow, and to prosper. You are aware that India at this moment is one of the fastest growing in the world. We probably have the second largest number of startups in the world, and increasingly amongst the largest numbers of new unicorns being created year on year, every year. Just this morning, I was reading about how the Indian startups have raised 12 billion only in this year up to June alone. And a record 16 unicorns have got created just in this same period. We do, of course, have some decacorns as well. So India has managed this for a variety of different reasons. Not the least of it is Indians with both open minds and open connections across the globe. So the network that one is able to create, both within the nation and globally, is a big help and support for these. As you know, there is a large Indian population in California, which has been the hotbed of innovation for the last few decades around the world. We've also networked and connected with such networks in Israel, in Cambridge, and a host of other places. So for us, this is now the lifeblood of growth in many ways, because it is also a fact that large established companies do not create new jobs. In fact, their attempt more often is to create more efficiency and thereby reduce jobs by doing the same or more with less number of people, or with more automation, more robotics, etc. So it is for a nation like India, and many of you, of the nations represented by many of you, clearly the next big horizon for growth is and will come from the energy provided by the startups. CII, which is India's premier industry association, has set up a startup council, which now connects and works not just with the governments at the central and state governments level, but also with industry itself, helping these startups with ideas, with connections, with mentoring, and often accessing funding as well. So we find this is an amazing win-win for the entire ecosystem, and we are more than happy to connect across the globe to multiply this for each one of us, because it truly must be a win-win-win for all the communities that get engaged with this, and then and only then does it work. So we would be very happy to provide the facilitation to each one of you to connect with the startup ecosystem in India, whether you're looking for introductions to individual companies or groups or angel funds or VCs, as all of these systems have got reasonably well established in India. I myself, along with a few friends, had started what is called the Indian Angel Network, which went on to become the world's largest angel network now, with operations in many parts of the world. And similarly, a whole host of other initiatives, both for angel funding, VC funding, supported by individuals, by financial institutions, by private enterprise, and by government. Government has provided a number of windows for support, including for funding of the startup. And we do know that these startups are now operating in a variety of areas, all the way from health tech to financial technologies to consumer goods to delivery from restaurants to shared rides. And clearly for us, as we move forward as an economy, the need for us to have high efficiency at moderate cost and pricing. And these startups are providing this in an amazing manner. The other area in which startups are doing an amazing job is reaching out to newer technologies, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and what is being done right now in areas of health tech. There are, as Renuka said, we are ourselves involved in a number of startups, both in India and across the globe, and varying all the way from setting up foundries to providing liquid corneas, to look at cancer drug discoveries, to providing pharmacies, deliveries at home. So these are some of our shining stars in India, and we hope and wish that this is a trend which takes over many other parts of the world, including in this Indo-Pacific partnerships that we aim to build with all of you. So we have also promoted and set up a unique corporate startup business connect at CII. We are also setting up a center in partnership with one of the state governments to only focus on the energy and the knowledge of the startup ecosystem. And these will all be helped by the National Startup Council that CII has established. Global partnership will play a key role in driving the future of startups, since it is only through collaborations that these initiatives prosper, grow, and benefit themselves and those around them. Thank you all very much, and I hope you have another good day at this conference. To all of you, stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you, Renuka.
Thank you, Mr. Munjal. Understand you will be leaving early.
I had to apologize. I've actually gotten a meeting which has come up at the last minute, and it is to do a little bit with, by the way, with the startup ecosystem itself. So
okay, all the best for that, and thank you for being with us. Yes,
thank you, and thank you, Rajan, for accepting and moderating the rest of the session.
Thank you, Sunil, and it was a pleasure to hear you. And we're all here, supporting the same strength of what India brings to the world, through the startup ecosystem. So thank you for your comments. Really great to hear you here today.
Renuka, you're muted.
Okay, and now I have the pleasure to invite Mr. Rajan Navani, Chairman CII's India at 75 Council and Vice Chairman and Managing Director, Jetline Group of Industries. Mr. Rajan Navani will moderate the session, and I request him to give his remarks and take the session forward. Over to you, Mr. Navani.
Thank you, Renuka, and a very good morning or good evening, as Sunil mentioned. A warm welcome to all of you who are joining in from different parts of the Indo-Pacific. I know we have people who have joined us from Singapore, Australia, Bangladesh, Japan, Colombia, India, and several other countries. And I think it's the coming together of people who really are invested deeply in the startup ecosystem from so many different countries, representing so many different sectors, that gives us hope and potential that the convening of platforms like this can really make a meaningful difference, especially when we are addressing a subject. What we are talking today about is helping startups go global. I think in today's day and age, we really look at startups primarily being disruptors. Startups really coming in either with a differentiated technology, a differentiated business model, a differentiated market, a differentiated approach. And I think the ability for startups to really be able to create impact comes from the point that once the startups have been able to discover and recognize their strengths, how do we really ensure that the right startups can go global and make a massive difference, especially when it comes to businesses and consumers around the world? So I think the emergence really of the Indo-Pacific region, coming together, as a single strategic construct. I mean, that's the way, we are seeing this conference today, with the reach right from the Africas to Americas, covering both the Indian and Pacific Oceans. I think is an important shift and is a fast emerging, economic corridor that I think will get exceedingly vibrant, and startups are going to play a key role in this corridor, as we move forward. I think COVID-19 has really proven that the concentration of the world supply chains in a globalized world, is really now the weakest link, as shifts are happening towards automation, digitization, diversification. A lot of new trends are shaping the world, and I think therefore in light of that, we really want to see how we can get startups to attract talent, catalyze local innovation, create jobs, increase productivity, competitiveness, and in the end, transform not only the economies from where they are coming, but to many, many other countries, extend that innovation as to be able to make a difference. And I think a conducive environment has today been created in India and many other countries, as Sunil mentioned, where entrepreneurs, talent pools, enablers, funders, government proactively coming in, to create a fresh wave of energy, for startups, especially in these kinds of times. And I think, while we recognize that, we also have to recognize that there are many startups that are struggling, to stay afloat, especially in the pandemic. Some might be short on capital, and some might, not really be able to, sustain, the journey from here on. But I think that's where an ecosystem or a group that is really looking at the importance of the sector, comes together to be able to make, timely interventions that can really then help in the transformation of our economies using the startup route. And I think, it's really interesting that a country like India, which today has become the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, has been able to work across, 586 districts, create employment, of several lakh of people. But increasingly important is the additional ecosystem, that will be created from there. Sunil did talk about 16 billion, which is there in the news that has come in, and it's interesting because about 63 billion came in up to 2020. And if you look at just this year, we have over 16 billion coming in the half year. So we can see that the investments that are going to happen in the startup ecosystem is definitely something that's going to increase. And I think the value creation that will be created out of startups, at least coming out of India, is expected to be anywhere in the range of over $500 billion by 2025. So I think, there is a tremendous opportunity, a lot of new sectors, a lot of deep tech, a lot of new materials, lots of different approaches in different sectors that can come together. And I think that's what we have, come here together for. We've got a great panel, which is going to take us through some of the initiatives that we are seeing in their areas. I think Indo-Pacific, anyway, has the largest internet user base in the world, today, and a lot of them are young and mobile people. And I think, there are innovations that are happening across the board. And, I feel there is a big learning for all of us, which will come out of this panel. So what I'm going to do is, without any further ado, go into the panel discussion. I'm going to request each of the panelists to take about 5 minutes to talk about, their role in the startup ecosystem, some of their suggestions on how we can help startups go global. And then we'll go around, the panel and have a interactive Q&A with each of the panelists. So may I invite to begin with Ms. Lim Ling, the head of APAC for Global Innovation of 500 Startups from Singapore. Lim?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rajan. So hi everyone, my name is Yiling Lim. I'm the head of Asia Pacific Business Development at 500 Startups. Some of you might know 500 Startups is actually one of the world's most active venture capital fund. We have invested in over 2,500 companies in 77 countries, of which 27 of them have become unicorns. And out of that 2,500, we have about 110 which are centaurs, so companies that are valued between 100 million to 999 million. What a lot of people know less about 500 Startups is that we have a global innovation arm that works with governments as well as corporates to build startup ecosystems and undertake innovation activities. So what does that look like? From a building startup ecosystems point of view, we work with governments such as the city of Kobe in Japan, to run accelerator programs in Kobe itself that has now become pretty well known for health tech and biomedical hub. We run programs in Singapore where we help university students as well as mid-career professionals who are aspiring founders find co-founders, launch startups through mentorship and guidance. We also work with Enterprise Singapore to help Singaporean startups expand overseas, taking them to Silicon Valley, which is really an interesting topic because that's the topic of our discussion today. So I won't go into too much details there just yet. We also separately, apart from the government agencies that we work with corporates who are really looking for new business model, new growth, new markets, and we help them launch new ventures, right, to really set forth that next decades of growth for them. How do they do that? We do it through two parts. One is internal venture building capacity. The other one is really external startup partnerships. So we help corporates really identify where they are in the spectrum of readiness to innovate. We help them identify resources and assets that they have internally to build their own ventures. And then we also help them partner with startups because we all know that startups are really a lot more agile. They've got a lot of interesting innovation and could really benefit both parties to go to market a lot sooner. So we've done work like that with financial institutions like VII in Singapore, to Petronas, which is the national oil and gas company in Malaysia, to LGU Plus, which is one of the top 3 telcos in South Korea. And before this, or separate from this, I also run my own startup in education. So education, mentoring, ecosystem building is really a topic that's really, really close to my heart. Thanks, Rajan.
Thanks, Lim. And I think thank you for those comments. And I must say, Singapore has been one country which has been very active, through the pandemic, especially when it came to, the signing of digital economy cooperation agreements with different countries. And I know Singapore signed up with Chile, New Zealand, and many other countries. And I think one of the key reasons for doing so was to be able to connect SMEs and startups, from Singapore into other countries, through the digital economy route, right? Because traditional methods of movement have got limited and restricted, but the digital wave is going to enhance that. And I must say that you're sitting in a great region from where we can see a lot of expansion happening to support the startup ecosystem, across the Indo-Pacific. So thank you for those comments. May I now invite Trevor Townsend, the CEO of Startup Bootcamp Australia, to kindly share his thoughts. Trevor?
Hi, Rajan. Can you see me on the screen okay?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, perfect. Well, thanks for having me along today. And as you said, name is Trevor Townsend, CEO of Startup Bootcamp Australia. Startup Bootcamp is the world's largest industry-focused accelerator program, running programs in over 22 countries around the world. And here in Australia, we focus on programs that are really trying to make the world a better place to live in. So we focus in on energy and clean energy and the energy transition, with fintech, with health, financial health and well-being, with sports and health, and also healthy foods are some of the programs that we're running here in Australia. I'd like to talk about internationalisation first in the backdrop of COVID and the shifts that we're seeing. We think prioritising innovation today is the key to unlocking post-crisis growth. The leaders will accelerate and the laggards will fall further behind. We've seen many industries embrace innovation during this crisis and have made significant changes to their business, witnessing the speed and the rollout of vaccines around the world, the dramatic rise of online shopping, remote education, and vast improvements in the digital experience that many corporations are offering those customers. We're also seeing with our work with consumers, some enduring consumer trends emerging as we move to the new normal. Customers now are focusing more on value and essentials as they've moved through the crisis. There has been a shock to loyalty. Customers are more willing to try alternatives, try new things, because they've been forced to in a lot of ways. We're also seeing the emergence of the homebody economy, spending more and more on home pursuits. And here in Australia, our housing prices have gone skyrocketing during this period as people are forced to stay home, and also spending lots of money on things like renovations and other things in the home. But consumers are willing to try more and more digital experiences and digital behaviours, and they're expressing a high intent from our work, over 65% or more, to incorporate these behaviours going forward. Also witnessing during this period a really strong rise in sustainability, circular economy, and so forth. So it's a core driver behind business and consumers. And this ever heightened awareness around the planet is really driving the need for change across many sectors as it pushes back into the supply chains, including energy, food, clothing, and manufacturing. Even in the fintech area, we're seeing fintech emerging, or financial services emerging as a key player in net zero and sustainability, as banks move away from financing dirty power or dirty energy or dirty projects, but also the rise of ESG investing. So that's driving a lot of opportunity for startups. So these changes in consumer behaviour, this push towards sustainability, this push towards circular economy, is shaking up a lot of markets, causing a lot of disruption, and that's creating the opportunity for startups. So how do startups innovate as they're unable to move around the world? So over the last 18 months, we've been changing the way we run our programs, obviously to 100% digital, so that we can connect international startups into Australia in a digital fashion, and dealing with the challenges that we see of building trust between corporates and startups and customers and end customers in a remote fashion. Try to build the ability to quickly get to substantive contracts and commercial arrangements between parties who have never physically met, which is a really, really big change. And this backdrop is helping to speed up the adoption of some of this new technology. So one of the collaborations that we've got running at the moment, one of the startups in our program, currently running our sports and event tech program, and we have SportsVot from India on that program. And SportsVot are enabling grassroots sports to broadcast their content globally. And they've come into Australia, and within 4 weeks, we're now broadcasting sports games out of Australia and finding sponsorship for them for companies who want to sponsor grassroots sports. Speed and that ability to build trust has been changed by the crisis. We're all here in a digital conference now, whereas 2 years ago, probably no one would have attended such a conference. So this ability to move and change and interact, collaborate online is actually beneficial for startups who don't have the budgets to travel, who need to talk to a lot of different people around the world. And then the ecosystem players, whether they're in Singapore or Japan or India, to connect their startups with international markets through such collaboration opportunities that you're offering today. So we'll be able to answer questions about specifics about what we're doing, but again, thank you for your time and allowing me to speak at the conference today.
Thanks, Trevor. Good to hear your comments. And, your comment on changing consumer behavior, it's interesting because, changing behavior of consumers is happening around the world, right? Because the pandemic has actually, touched, every. And I know because, as a group, not only do we invest significantly in startups across different stages, but we also run operationally some new age, businesses. And, in areas like gaming and, entertainment, esports have seen a radical jump of, several 100% growth, and across the world. It's not only in one country, from whatever base it has been. And I think that's the strong point of, the changing consumer behavior, giving opportunities not only to new kind of initiatives, but also to rapidly scale existing businesses. And today's subject really is about scalability and how do we help startups go global. India has done a very strong startup program, which has now got deep roots. And we talk with government, CII particularly, to see how now we can really create a Scale Up India program. And a large part of that is going to involve, going global, right? And I think, changing consumer behaviors are great triggers, to get companies together. But thanks for those comments, and I'll come back to you later in the session. Can I now move to Tina Jabin, the Managing Director and CEO of Startup Bangladesh Limited. Tina, could you share your thoughts? Tina? I think you're on mute, Tina.
Sorry, sorry about that. Just wanted to say thanks for inviting me to this, to the Indo-Pacific Business Summit. I would like to thank the organizers, and also a very good evening to my esteemed panelists. I'm joining here from San Francisco, so hence the good evening. So Startup Bangladesh Limited is a venture capital fund, which has been wholly funded by the government of Bangladesh. And it started its journey about a year ago. And, basically, I am representing the ICT ministry, the government of Bangladesh, and the Startup Bangladesh platform. I just wanted to share a very quick overview of about the startup ecosystem of Bangladesh right now. It is actually quite young, probably 7 to 8 years old. And the government has started this initiative to develop and foster the startup ecosystem probably about 5 years ago. And one of the predecessor to Startup Bangladesh Limited, this VC fund, was a grant fund platform, which is called IDEA, Innovation Design Entrepreneurship Academy. And it started about 5 years ago. And at that time, the startup landscape was very small, about 200 some startups, in very early stages. But now it's about 2,500 strong, which is really great. 2,500 very active startups, probably about 1,000 of them, in different stages, and received investments from different type of institutions, angels, and whatnot. So going back to Startup Bangladesh Limited, what we are doing right now, it is mainly we are investing in early stage to growth stage startups. And additionally, we are trying to collaborate with universities and accelerators and partners such as yours, and also different venture capitals who are in Bangladesh, because our job is to bridge the gap between the startups and the investors. And the gap is not just funding gap, but there is a lot of gap about the technology knowledge exchange. So we are also doing lots of networking with the knowledge partners. So we do work very closely with all the developmental agencies such as ESCAP, UNDP. We are also working with some of the women leadership development programs, because what we have seen is that women founders, they need a little bit more hand-holding and guidance in running the business operations than their male counterpart. So that has been one area we are working on. We do use gender lens in our funding activities. So far we have funded 7 startups from growth to early stage. And this year, 2021, as I'm sure many of you know, that is a very special year for Bangladesh. We are celebrating the 50th Golden Jubilee of the country, independence of Bangladesh. And also we are celebrating the birth centennial of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So we are celebrating these 2 very important milestones for our country by investing in 50 startups this year. So, this is, it's a start. It's a very, very special and a historical kind of initiative by the government of Bangladesh, because, there aren't that many government-funded startups globally, and Bangladesh is one of them. So we do look forward to, working with platforms such as, CII, and also lots of the other platforms who have joined here. And I do agree that, this region, as globally, South Asia, and especially our region, is becoming stronger and will become one of the largest economy, if not the largest. So definitely startups are going to fuel that. And, regional cooperations and collaboration is very important. So from Startup Bangladesh side, I do welcome the collaborations that, we can do going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina. And I can totally appreciate the potential of what Bangladesh brings. India is also celebrating the 75th year of independence beginning later this year, and I think CI has led a kind of a campaign to see how new age businesses, the future of new jobs that would be required, for the come for as a part of the New India of 2022 vision of also Prime Minister Modi. So I think there's a lot one can, collaborate on and see how we can extend. India becomes a great consumer market for Bangladeshi startups to come and, participate. So really look forward to deeper engagement, particularly with India. May I now move to Hiroyuki Suzuki, the Executive Vice President, Advanced Telecommunications Research Institute International for Japan. So Suzuki-san, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, I'm Suzuki of ATL. Thank you very much for inviting me to this wonderful summit today. So actually, I'm joining this session from Keihan Science City, which is located in the western part of Japan, more specifically in the middle of Kyoto, Osaka, and Nara. And the Keihan Science City is one of the two major science cities in Japan. And now more than 150 R&D related organizations are located in the city, such as universities, a governmental research institute, and R&D centers of big companies. And Keihan Science City is also a POC-friendly city, so that I think this is good for startups, since they can test their service and the products with local residents. From my point of view, the subject of this session, helping startups go global, have two meanings. Helping overseas startups to go to Japan, and helping Japanese startups to go abroad. You may think Japanese enterprise are pretty conservative, but they are changing to exploit open innovations with global startups. Not just entrepreneurs, enterprises, but we see a change in awareness to university students. Our best student used to be join the big enterprises or ministries, but now they are becoming entrepreneurs recently. So it is true that there are still some typical hurdles when entering into Japanese market. For instance, language barriers, differences in cultures and the business practice and so on. And this is the reason why I'm here today. We help overseas startups to do business in Japan, as well as Japanese startups to do business overseas. About 4 years ago, we started the construction of Global Innovation Collaboration Network to establish a global innovation ecosystem in Keihan Science City. The network has grown quite fast and is now composed of about 570 organizations, including 216 overseas organizations in 22 countries. Core partners of this network are Barcelona in Spain, Israel, New York City, Canada, and of course, India. For instance, we signed MOU and are working very closely with CII and NASCOM for India. What we try to achieve is, first of all, to construct a two-dimensional collaboration network acting Keihan Science City as a hub, so that, for instance, an Indian startup can find a partner in Canada and an investor in US through our programs, and then to connect this network with Japanese market and tech society. The primary program to realize this framework is K100 Global Acceleration Program Plus, KGAP Plus in short. KGAP Plus helps not only Japanese startups, but also overseas startups go global. Namely, we support Japanese startups to scale their business outside Japan and vice versa, global startups to scale their business in or out of Japan. Our mentors provide global startups with seminars on business and social and legal issues in Japan and try to match them with Japanese enterprises by, if necessary, adjusting their business models and or targeting business sectors to the Japanese market. Moreover, we can provide selected startups with a special program either in Europe or New York City to support their business expansion globally. To date, we have accepted 48 startups from 8 countries, including 4 Indian startups recommended by CII, and categorized 13 sectors in KGAP Plus batch 1 to 4 during the last 2 years, and succeeded in matching of 40 startups out of 48 startups with companies and hospitals in Japan, meaning at the percentage of as high as 83%. And in addition, 2 startups participated in the New York Special Program of KGAP Plus Batch 4 were offered investment by New York investors. Actually, I myself founded a new company called Cross Border Innovations in February this year. I'm the president and the CEO of the company and carry out acceleration and also the funding for both Japanese and overseas startups. So we do look forward to working with startups who are interested in the Japanese market, as well as enterprises and organizations to exploit open innovations with global startups. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Suzuki-san. And I think Japan is definitely a country that, many of the other countries will be able to, find complementary capabilities with, and, look at opportunities not only in, bilateral markets, but actually create solutions for global markets together. And I think that's a big opportunity, that's waiting to be untapped. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I'm now going to invite Dr. Gopichand Katragada, the founder and CEO of Mylan Foundry in India. So Gopi comes with, a very rich professional experience, having led the Tata Group on his technology initiatives prior to that, and now joined the startup world. So it'd be interesting to hear from him on his startup, thoughts and journey. So over to you, Gopi.
Thank you, Rajan. It's indeed a privilege being here and listening to you and the fellow panelists from different parts of the world. So I will share perspectives from a few standpoints. Of course, I am a startup right now, so happy to share thoughts about what would help a startup like mine grow global, so first-hand experiences. But also I'm a co-chair along with Chris on the Startup Council, so CII Startup Council. So I will share a few perspectives from that standpoint as well. I'll just share my screen, just a couple of slides which will help me be more efficient. Yeah, so in terms of India and leveraging India, and many of my colleagues would be interested, the fellow panelists would be interested in at least my thoughts on where India does offer an advantage from a startup standpoint and from a talent standpoint. There are many areas, technically speaking, where India brings a lot of knowledge, theoretical as well as hands-on. The areas which matter right now are, of course, artificial intelligence. There is significant capability in India in this area. Social computing, the ability to take data, new kinds of data coming from social media, doing so legally and using it usefully for various open source intelligence applications is something that, again, the talent in India is really good at. Blockchain is a little bit away in terms of wide scale applications. But again, what I have seen is that the capability to bring blockchain to peer-to-peer kind of applications which is where it will see beyond the Bitcoin kind of applications, the cryptocurrency kind of applications, is an area where India startups as well as the talent can play a big role. Omics, the transcriptomics, biomics, genomics, all these areas are a hidden area of talent pool in India, and there are significant startups with capabilities. Biology is becoming critical, and there are several startups with this flavor, which I would encourage people participating in this conference to look at. And sensors has been a strength for India for a long time. And the applications, of course, of these areas, technology areas, span infra services, fintech, medtech, and retail. And the startups in these areas are doing well, but they would be extremely benefited by going global. Very quick view of the CII startup support. Rajan, you spoke about it, as well as Mr. Munjal, so we'll not go into the details. But some next level of detail, for example, the Startup Council, of course, has set up a National Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship with startups in Hyderabad. So it's something that I would draw attention to. And there are several other programs, including immersion programs to different countries. So since I have participants from different countries here, I would suggest that they connect with the Startup Council and encourage the visits of startups to your regions so that we can further strengthen the capabilities. Another program, Gita, is extremely critical, and the program funds Indian startups while also requiring the startup to collaborate with the startup in another country or region where the funding for that startup comes from the respective country. And I have found that to be most difficult to find a startup in the participating country. So we could use a lot of help in this area to match up startups who are equally good and who can equally benefit from the funding each country is willing to provide. Also, MNCs are playing their role. I've been part of the Tata Group. I'll talk about what we have done there, GE as well. But name it, and MNC is participating in the startup ecosystem and the innovation ecosystem in India. Either it is through directly having a venture arm which funds the startup, or it could be having contests with select startups to put them through a program along with some funding and find partners in that process. So there are many ways to do this from an MNC standpoint. The best way, in my view, is where the MNC is providing a market connect to the startup. The technology agility and the ability of the startups in India, they have to build themselves, and they're very capable. The market connect is where the biggest need is, because the Indian market today, while it is large, is still not a lead market. It is a follower market. Unfortunately, I do think it will become a lead market where the global first products will launch in India. But right now, we need to launch some of these products globally, and so the market access would be great. Indian companies as well have reached out globally and funded globally. So as part of the Tata Group, I have funded programs at Harvard, Yale, Imperial, which through the faculty, we reach out to startups as well, faculty-led startups. Tata Industries is another window through whom we reach out to startups in India and globally. And other companies within the Tata Group have their own incubator spaces as well as connect into the startup ecosystem. So in the Indian companies, I would love for more companies to take a major role in encouraging startups and ensuring that your programs are meaningful in the startup ecosystem. As an example, I know that some large companies have a payment scheme which is 120 days. This will not work in a startup ecosystem kind of environment. So you need to have specific windows for startups which are different. Startups cannot be dependent on all the help which is being provided only. They have to do their own stuff. And here's my list of things that startups will have to do in order to go global. Most critical is not to have a Me Too product for the India market, we should aspire to be global first with our products and services. We should, for example, we have Ms. Ling here from 500 startups, and take opportunities like that, attract global VCs, have global advisors, be globally relevant, reach out and get employees, if not founders, with global experience. Compliance has to be to global standards without exception, and Indian presence of global prospects. For example, we work with Sony. Sony is in India, but Sony is in global markets as well. So reach out through the Indian window to the global markets, and also importantly, protect your IP globally. There's a lot of opportunity, technologically speaking, but really it's an exciting time to be a technologist. It's an exciting time to be a startup. It's an exciting time to be in India. It's an exciting time to be in the Pacific region. Thanks for the opportunity, Rajan. Back to you.
Thanks, Gopi, and it's truly exciting time to be a startup, anywhere in the world. And I think we're all aligned on that thought. And those who are tuning in and who are listening to this conversation, we want to excite you as much too, because I think we're going to see a lot of new founders. There are a lot of young professionals and others, I think, who have joined the summit and particularly our session to understand how they can become part of the startup ecosystem and how they can grow further within this ecosystem, and of course all the stakeholders. So yes, truly exciting times. May I now move to our last speaker on this panel, Mr. Juan Sanchez. He's the director of Pro Colombia, Embassy of Colombia. Juan?
Thank you, Rajan. And I would like just to give special greetings to the CII for this kind of invitation and the panelists that we are just together. So, Rajan, for me, just to be the last one, just to speak is quite difficult, because it's probably that I will just be repeating the things, but I've been just listening some really important words for in this discussion, and all of them, they are just related to facilitation, articulation, innovation, but also partnership. We are in the government of Colombia through this Bureau of Promotional, this Bureau of Investment Promotional. We are working on creating networks and the condition in order just to provide the benefit for local and international startups, in order just to stabilize the income, just to grow in the market, but also to control the costs. So in that sense, I would like to say that, for example, through ProColombia, the companies that are going to Latin America, having a Colombia as a hub for the expansion, they are just finding really, really special conditions in order just to grow in, a special part of the continent. That is, I realized when I was the director of ProColombia in Mexico, that companies that are just starting in Colombia in order just to grow, they are just improving the market in Colombia, then just go into Mexico from Colombia, and then from Colombia, Mexico, going to the west of the United States. This is the natural growth of the startups in Latin America in this very moment. But talking about the Colombian vision about the startups, we have just to say that considering that, for example, Colombia is a member of the OCDE, but also that we have free trade agreements, that we have investment agreements, but also we have double taxation agreement, for example, with India. We said that in this very moment, Colombia is becoming the third most entrepreneurial country in Latin America. And in a kind of way, Rajan, that we are just looking at the improvement of the condition for startups, locally and internationally. It means physical infrastructure, government support, entrepreneurial culture, government policies, not just benefit, but also just improving the whole cycle of the growth of the company. The other thing is that we are just trying to improve in Colombia the number of new startups that are just being registered in the country. As a number, and I have to say that Latin America as a whole market is improving in that condition. Colombia has around 450 new companies registering in the country, Brazil around 1,000, and Mexico around 450. and we need to improve that. The other thing is that the way that we are just trying to help the startups are creating the condition in order just to international investors to see Colombia as a land of opportunities, but not just Colombia, Rajan. I think Latin America as a market of opportunities. So as an example, I would just like to mention that Rappi, that is a delivery company in Colombia, is quite similar to Zomato and Uber Eats. They were being invested by companies like SoftBank, but also from Sequoia Capital. They invest around $1 billion in the last 2 years. The thing is that the government is committed to the private sector, and we like businesses, and we like just to help the businesses. So we created an important institution long time ago called Impulsa. That is the national entity that impulses the purpose of innovation and high-tech entrepreneurs. The thing is that Impulsa, in this case, they help the innovation and the entrepreneurship, try to dynamize the strength and key players of entrepreneurial ecosystem and contribute to equity of legality that is quite important in our countries. If you want just to do businesses in Latin America, legality is one of the main points that we are just to enforce in the country. The other thing is that Impulsa is creating a kind of trust in order just to participate, but help the companies, the startups in Colombia, in order just to create financial culture, connect to the right offers, but articulate financial instruments. That is a really important issue that we are facing in Latin America for the international startups that want just to settle in our country. Also, we are trying to articulate all the companies and institutions from the government. The External Commerce Bank of Colombia is creating financial instruments for the startups, also international ones. The Minister of Science is helping with the regulation, and the Minister of IT is helping with the creating the condition for them. Finally, this is joined with something that is really important for us, Rajan, is that Colombia was selected as the industrial fourth revolution network in speaking, and is the first in the Spanish speaking in the world. And this is important to consider for the startups from all around the world to go there. Finally, regarding to the trends, we are finding that in Latin America, we have some important opportunities for startups from India and in the Indo-Pacific region. Education tech, fintech, robotics, e-commerce, logistics solution, and health tech. So I think this is a really big topic, Rajan, but this is the kind of thing we are doing in Colombia. We have a lot of benefits. I do believe that a country like Mexico and Chile, they have also the benefits. But the important thing is just try to take advantage of the conditions that we are presenting as promotional agencies all around Latin America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juan, for sharing the context in light of Colombia, and bringing in specific sectoral kind of preferences that are there. And I think things like fintech and health tech and many of the areas you were talking of probably cut across as priorities for many countries. And I think therefore the ability for startups to move into some of these countries, because the governments and the private sectors there are supportive of new companies. Maybe one thing that I think doesn't happen too much is one startup collaborating with another startup. I think that's a big gap globally, probably because every startup wants to kind of get it on their own. I don't know, when we look at sectoral areas, is there a way for us to play a greater role to connect startups that could then look together, strengthening different countries. But interesting points, and thank you for sharing. We have about 15 minutes left on this panel. So while all of you have talked about how we can look at growing startups and taking them into global markets and what we can do, maybe a little question to each of you, if you could answer in about 2 or 3 minutes each, about your organization, and maybe I'll try and frame something around that. So we'll go around again. Lim, maybe start with you. Your organization has backed over 2,500 companies in 77 countries already. That's what our data tells us. So how does 500 startups really, help entrepreneurs, take their businesses global? And mainly, what are the challenges, right? If you had to pinpoint, maybe 2 or 3 challenges that you see emerging across all of these companies, what do you think that would be?
Thanks so much, Rajan. Yeah, so aside from the companies that we've invested in, again, we run accelerator programs at different stages, right? So for startups who are at, the pre-seed or seed stage and are trying to scale and grow, we do have dedicated accelerator programs that help them achieve that. And then for startups who've really found very, very strong product market fit, have commercialized successfully in their home countries, we also have market access accelerator programs that help them expand overseas. So what are the most common challenges that we see for startups at different stages of growth? I think there are 4 key things that we see. Number one, not in order of preference or importance, but really, number one, access to capital. Number 2, getting to product market fit. Number 3, acquiring customers and users. And number 4, really having the right people. So co-founders and hiring. All this rank differently and surface differently depending on what stage you're at. But this also ties very, very closely with how we assess if a company is actually ready to expand overseas and how we actually help them. So we talk about global expansion itself. How do we assess if a company is really ready for expansion? The first one is actually market, right? This new market that they're looking to enter, are they, does it already have the solution that this startup has, right? What is the customer profile, the industry, the solution, and is there demand for such a solution in this new market? Can this startup solution be competitive in that new market? So that also is predicated on an assumption that this startup already has found product market fit and already has traction in their home country. So we do look at what stage of maturity is this startup at in their home country. Have they achieved meaningful traction and scale? And then thirdly, resources. Is the team stable enough such that they are able to dedicate resources, both from a HR perspective and also obviously monetary perspective, right? To have at least one co-founder relocate for a few months to that new market, dedicate time for expansion for this new market, while at the same time really keeping their existing operations going. Do they have experience in all this geographical expansion? So really, for a startup, you want to think about these few things in order to determine if you're ready as well. So flipping it the other side, as a startup, how do you determine if you're ready for expansion? Number one, talk to as many customers as possible in that new market to understand, do they have the same problem that you are trying to solve, say, in India? Does your products need to change for this new market? Are there competitors in this new market already providing those products? Secondly, do you have the resources for this new one? And then thirdly, are there any regulatory differences that will significantly change your go-to-market strategy, your product, or your customer target in your current home country? So for 500, after we assess all this and we decide that, okay, these startups are ready, in terms of the programs that we actually run, what exactly do we provide? 2 key things. Number one, guidance and mentorship on new market validation. Oftentimes, we see startups coming into our programs and thinking that they've got it, right? They've done it for multiple years. They know now how to expand their new market. And then realizing as they go through this journey that it's probably not true. Whatever that they thought, the assumptions that they did when they were first starting out may no longer apply. And even if they do, they still apply. They still need to test out this new hypothesis in this new market. So we really guide and mentor them on customer discovery, new market validation experiments, go-to-market strategy for this new market, and potentially even fundraising in this new market, right? The second thing that we provide, and increasingly is being asked for by our partners, is introductions. So can we facilitate introductions and connections between startups as well as potential customers, distribution partners, corporates, investors in this new market? So that's also something that we do. However, to everyone on the call, I think what we always try and tell people is that before you jump ahead to talking about connections, we do want to make sure that you actually do have the right strategy and have validated this new market first. Otherwise, if you're not ready, no matter how many connections that we can make and facilitate for you, you are not ready. So yeah, that's how we approach this whole process.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. That was very comprehensive and, very well articulated, in a step-by-step process. But, maybe we have people like Trevor who are sitting in Australia who can tell us exactly what those opportunities are and who has done all the research, completely understands, where to enter and what not to do in Australia and probably make this process simpler. So Trevor, I'm coming to you. Startup Bootcamp probably does exactly that, right? You're looking at what startups are doing. You have 140 corporate partners, a lot of mentors, over 3,300 from what I see. You do events in over 100 cities in a year. You must be getting a lot of this common learning. But for those who want to come into Australia, or for those who want to go out of Australia, particularly coming in, what are those areas? What are the opportunities in light of pandemic? 2, 3 quick ones, if you can identify.
Yeah, no, certainly. So, we do very much what Lynn so eloquently went through there in terms of market entry and so forth. And it's really looking to validate those assumptions into the market that you're entering in. And often with startups that we're working with, it's their first international expansion. So it's actually the learnings of how to go through that process and what assumptions they're trying to validate for the new market, which is, super important. In terms of where the opportunities are, well, we look for disruption. We look for industries that are being disrupted, that industries are having to move quickly. And obviously the whole kind of net zero carbon sustainability area is just great, gaining momentum so fast. So there's lots of opportunities around that from many, many different angles, whether it's training, whether it's skills, whether it's financial services products, whether it's energy products, whether it's in the food space with different ingredients and so forth. So anybody thinking about Australia and thinking about coming here, if you have a story around the circular economy, sustainability and things like that, that you'll be coming to the right spot to test out those propositions here in the market. And I think, that would be the number one thing that I'd sort of leave you with. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. That's pretty interesting. Moving to Tina, while Startup Bangladesh provides investment in form of equity, convertible debt, I think grants and pre-seed, seed, growth stage startups to Bangladeshi startups, right? How would you welcome, other startups into Bangladesh? And if you were to make a pitch, why should they come to Bangladesh? What are the advantages? Maybe 3 or 5 advantages of coming to Bangladesh.
Sure. Yes, of course, non-Bangladeshi startups are very much welcome in Bangladesh, and I'll give you a couple of reasons. One is the sheer size of the market. Okay, it is 160 million people, so the market size is huge, and the density. We know the density dividend, right? So that is, obviously that's a positive thing. The other thing is that, the middle income affluent customers, the MAC community, that is expanding gradually. And it's going to be about 3.5 million, almost as, the population of Malaysia. The size of, so these are important numbers, because with these type of customers, there comes certain type of demands, right, for products and services and whatnot. And definitely, the startups in Bangladesh, they are catering to these type of the MEC community, and obviously, any other businesses who wants to come in Bangladesh, also startups. For them, these are very attractive attributes. The other thing is that, Bangladesh is, we call it homogeneity dividend, right? The language and, the culture, it's all one. So that gives you a lot of ease in, how you're going to do product marketing and packaging and whatnot, because you just use one language. So that's very important. Overall, the government of Bangladesh has, they're rolling in lots of incentives to bring in investors, startups, and also to support the startups in the country. And the tech ITS services and products and services, that has, very, very favorable tax rules. And also, there is, if somebody's coming in, very favorable repatriation rules, tax holidays, those all kinds of things. Additionally, there are high-tech parks, almost 39 of them, high-tech parks and software technology parks. 12 of them are in partnership with the government of India. So there are startup hubs, and they provide rent discounts and things like that. The other thing is that's very important is that the Bangladesh is working towards obviously the SDG 2030 goals, and also Vision 2041, which is becoming the developed nation by 2041. So there are specific verticals in the National Perspective Plan, which is agri-tech, fintech, education technology, digital commerce, and bringing in technologies which are going to transform the lives of hundreds of millions of people. And also it's going to it's going to be very inclusive. It's going to bring in, it's going to be very scalable. So whichever startups are working in Bangladesh or they want to come into Bangladesh, the fact that government is focused in these areas, the policies and the market and everything will be very conducive to become quite successful in the country. So those are the things that I kind of want to mention. The other thing is startups, although it's a very new, it's still, as I said, it's kind of 7-8 years old, the ecosystem, but it also already generated about directly, indirectly 15 million jobs, which is, quite impressive. So once, the startups are coming in, it's creating lots of jobs, creating lots of disposable income for the folks who are working in the tech area, and which is going back to the economy. So overall, it's all together, right? It's a pretty win-win situation. The other thing very quickly I want to mention is that if startups are looking into, coming into here in the country, the areas in education technology, health and mental well-being, and then also agri-tech. Big areas to become very active because there are gaps there. So it's very easy to bring in very good solutions which are working and kind of plug into the system. And also the other area is startups who are working with SMEs, because SMEs are creating lots of jobs and contributing to the economy, and a lot more potential to do more. So definitely startups, who are working with SMEs and micro merchants in fintech, areas of huge growth in the country, which is very much aligned with the National Development Plan 2041.
Thank you. Thanks. I do hope all the reasons you mentioned will get some of the startups who are attending this conference today to really start looking at Bangladesh, as a very serious market. Moving to Suzuki-san. Suzuki-san, ATR, promotes pioneering and innovative research in ICT-related fields, with global collaboration amongst multiple stakeholders, right? So I think you bring industry, academia, government together. And while that will continue, to kind of drive the ecosystem, the key thing that startups are facing now is funding, right? I mean, there's a lot of challenges. Do you see that, the COVID has affected that, some things on their access to new markets and any emerging trends? I mean, we have a few minutes, so if you can speak for a couple of minutes and then we close it out with the other two panelists.
Okay, of course, the situation for startups was getting worse, but I think it's recovering quite fast. One of the reasons for us is in Kansai area, in which ATL is locating, we'll have a big event, Expo 2025. Okay, so that's motivated industries and startups to work together and closely and to do something new.
Okay. So you see that scenario changing quite rapidly right now, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay,
And the
great.
demand of funding is quite large. And the reason why I created a new company, with which we can invest not only Japanese companies, but also global startups who work in Japan. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And, if I go to Gopi, his myelin foundry has actually raised a round from a Japanese VC firm recently. So that also shows that, there is continuity in that thought. But, Gopi's myelin foundry is actually a deep tech product startup, which is transforming human experiences and industry outcomes by building AI, so, you were talking of this global product, something new, Gopi, getting into a new market. We heard from Lim, we heard from Tina, everyone, what's that one or two key points that you think you need to get right, for your startup before you can enter, in new market?
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Rajan, the question was for Suzuki-san?
It was to you, Gopi. Yeah.
Okay. Rajan, thanks for the question. To expand on the earlier thought, yes, the AI, everybody says and does in some form or the other. So when I say global first, now what does it mean? AI has many flavors. To be able to do things like convolution neural networks and deep neural networks is where the excitement is. But that also many people do. So the differentiation comes from being able to do it on the edge, low compute, real time, low power consumption. These are all challenges which are not easy to surmount. And you need to have the appetite to take it up. But more importantly, it is the applications which matter, the market revenue possibility and the profitability of the area which matters. So the critical thing for companies, startups to go global is to have a team, like Ms. Lim said, which has the appetite and the stamina to persevere. But then immediately following that is not an idea, but a product which has been established in the market. Like, for example, in the India market, what we can do is show the capabilities over volumes. The ability to draw revenues might be more so in global markets, but the product has to be uniquely positioned.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. I think Suzuki-san, you wanted to add something to that? I thought you were trying to say something. Okay, all right. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So, Juan, to that Gopi's point, I think that's a very, very key part. But, given that, you are speaking on your experience has been on investment banking, business promotion, you do structuring and financial valuation. And while Suzuki-san said, the funding scenario has improved and changed, since we are really talking of Indo-Pacific as a region, good to get the flavor from different parts. How is it in Colombia and in your region, especially for entrepreneurs, given the COVID situation? What's the key challenge that they might be facing there, and what's a good solution?
Well, Rajan, I was just, listening to your first question when I just finished my last one. And I think the key point in here is having the really proper partner in Colombia and in Latin America, because this can allow the company, the international startup, just to go there and to find the proper funding, and also just to have the condition of just to grow into the market. Yeah, Colombia is a small market, 50 million people market, okay? But if we consider that we are included in the Pacific Alliance, and you have the proper partner, even from Mexico, Chile, or Peru, having the company in Colombia, you could avoid a little bit these difficulties in that. The other thing is that the way that legislation can help companies from the Indo-Pacific region in order just to transfer the technology to countries like Colombia can be the proper condition in order just for them just to grow with a local partner, something like that. Yeah.
No, thank you. I think makes sense. Eventually, I think this trend of moving into different countries with local partners, trying to work with other startups and other established companies in different markets could definitely be a great accelerator to help startups go global. And I think, if conversations like these can continue and networks formed, it can really help startup communities to connect with one another and see how their expansion, product fit, and all the aspects that we've discussed today could enable this huge growth in global search for startups. So I really want to thank each of you for being here. I'm sure your insights will go a long way in helping shape the minds of the entrepreneurs who have been here attending the summit today, and really put together a way forward for all of us as businesses, as societies, as countries, to make progress, to solve problems, in a new way, which is now gaining tremendous steam around the world. So again, thank you, panelists, and thank you for your time. And I know all of you have joined from different time zones, and really appreciate you doing that. So thank you.
Rajan, on behalf of the panelists, thanks for moderating it so well.
No, it was a pleasure. Lovely. Joy being with all of you. Thanks so much. Back to you, Renuka, CII.
Thanks from Australia.
Thank you.
Thank you from Japan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.